Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Thursday, and for the first time in the 2025 NFL season, it is a ball night. Are you excited?
Well, to be fair, if you ask my wife, there have been plenty of ball nights in 2025.
It's an NFL ball night then.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome.
A few news items, and then we are going to talk a redraft, mock draft. We mentioned Isaiah Likely got banged up to miss a few weeks on Tuesday. On Wednesday, it was announced he actually broke a bone in his foot. Does that make you more or less concerned?
You know, they're talking he might miss about 6 weeks. It's kind of what we, when they initially said it, they're like, oh,
that's different than a turned ankle, though. I mean, turned ankle, I'm like, yeah, he'll miss the preseason. Broke a bone in his foot seems a little more serious.
You know, it maybe is. How bad was the break? Did it break? I don't know. We'll see. It's one of those things where, we weren't drafting Isaiah Likely as a starter. I gotta believe that. So, will it move his ADP down a little bit? Sure. But he really needed Mark Andrews to go out for a significant amount of time, I think, to be consistently relevant. And I don't know if that was going to happen.
Piece of late breaking news. Terry McLaurin, he reported he's doing a hold in. There were talks that they were trying to do some contract negotiations. Those apparently have not gone well. He has now formally requested a trade. I would think for a Commanders team that finally got its stuff together and was looking pretty good, having your number one receiver trying to get out as we turn the calendar to August is not a great sign.
It's gamesmanship. It's the next step in the process. All right, I'm gonna tell the press that I'm disgruntled. I'm gonna threaten to not come to camp. I'm gonna delay coming to camp. I'm gonna come to camp, but I'm not gonna work out because I've got a mysterious injury. Now it's, I want to trade. I'd like to be less cynical about it, but I just don't know that I can. Could he hold out? Sure. Will he? Probably not. They'll likely get something done. I mean, the last thing that team needs to do is say, hey, young stud quarterback, we're going to take away your best weapon because we're stupid. So, it isn't like they've got a running game that can compensate for it. Deebo Samuel, yeah, he's a nice piece, but he's not a number one. You got catch and fall Zach Ertz, an okay defense, but do you really want Jaden Daniels to, have to rush for 1,100 yards for the team to be successful? No. So I still think they get something done. Probably if you're in Dynasty and you're contending, maybe it's an opportunity to buy the dip. And if you can slide McLaurin in as your wide receiver 3-4 at a reasonable price, give it a shot.
Yeah, it just these teams, man. Sometimes these preseason distractions, they're just not good. So we'll see. Hopefully, they can get something worked out here. Definitely a little bit concerning. A team that's been very active has been the Cincinnati Bengals. They released Zach Moss out of the running back room. Trey Hendrickson finally did report to camp, but much like Terry McLaurin, he's not practicing. He is kind of doing a hold in. And then, probably the most shocking thing, they signed Noah Fant at tight end, who was released by the Seattle Seahawks. I was curious about the running back thing. A lot of people saying this is a good sign for Taj Brooks, who was drafted. Obviously, we thought Chase Brown was going to be number one and probably be the alpha dog back there. Nothing so far gives any indication there's going to be something different. But I don't get the Fant signing, and I would think for fantasy, all this does is kill my enthusiasm for Noah Fant and a little of my enthusiasm for Mike Gesicki.
I mean, I didn't have a ton of enthusiasm for Noah Fant. Seattle already was generously using AJ Barner. And so while they got rid of Lockett and Metcalf up there and were kind of turning the reins over to JSN, and there was some hope for Fant, they do like AJ Barner up there. So I think this kind of tells us what the league thinks of Noah Fant. Where did he start out at? Was he in Denver?
He was in Denver, yeah. He was drafted
and then
by Denver.
Went to Seattle, and he's just never quite. He seems like the outlier of the Iowa tight ends, kind of. He's not Kittle, he's not Hockenson. He's sort of that. He's the guy that brings the GPA down in that group, or
Well, I thought he had a good chance. He looked really good at the beginning. He kind of got included in that that trade that brought them Russell Wilson, kind of as a throw-in. It's just unfortunate. Feels unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, will he cannibalize Gesicki some? Maybe, but I don't know how high we really were on Gesicki. It felt like, I don't know. I kind of feel like Gesicki's role will stay pretty similar to what it was. Fant will be the backup, provide them with some more athletic depth. But I don't know that he. So what? Maybe he takes Gesicki from tight end 12 to tight end 14.
Well, I don't know if I even had Gesicki that high. You're probably right. I forgot the Bengals brought back Samaje Perine, so I guess it's Samaje Perine and Taj Brooks and Gary Brightwell, if you believe in such things, behind Chase Brown. So maybe they just figured Samaje Perine was all they needed. But yeah, I don't think
that feels like a team that's going to bring in at least one free agent running back when. After final cuts, and I don't know that fans
necessarily
stick with the team.
I mean, I think now wasn't they had a tight end. I was trying to think who it is that's out for the year. So maybe that's part of this. I was just going to look. I don't think that I even had Gesicki. So maybe you're right. I had Gesicki kind of as a low end tight end too, because I think as long as Brown, Higgins, and Chase are healthy, he was kind of vying for targets with Andre Iosivas and maybe Jermaine Burton, if you believe in the Jermaine Burton renaissance. So I just thought it was a weird move.
Jermaine Burton renaissance than I do the Noah Fant renaissance.
Yeah. That's true. I thought, though, if Fant landed in the right spot, there are plenty of tight end needy teams, but maybe Fant wants to get in the playoffs because he was part of some pretty poor Denver teams and then got traded to Seattle just in time for Seattle to kind of fall apart. So, maybe he's looking for more of a contender. The last bit of news, the Chargers announced their starting quarterback tonight will be Trey Lance. A lot of jokes on the internet that this is how people are going to learn that Trey Lance now plays for the Chargers. You and I knew that because we had talked about it. Seems like they're wanting to get a look. I don't think we were expecting a lot of starters in tonight's game for either the Lions or the Chargers, but I feel like the Chargers isn't Taylor Heineke there? I would think Lance is more like their third quarterback.
Oh yeah, he's definitely their third quarterback. Let's see. Get to the depth chart here.
I was pretty sure Taylor Heineke is their backup. I'm gonna look right now. Yes, Taylor Heineke. So they have Trey Lance listed as third, and I forgot they have DJ Ugalele. So I bet we're gonna see those two guys tonight. Do you think we're gonna get to see some Hendon Hooker?
Yeah, I think Hendon Hooker may start the game. Obviously Teddy Bridgewater's not playing.
I just want to see Isaac Tesla and see if I can see why they took him in the third round.
Yeah. Who knows? Detroit, I wasn't a fan of the Dan Campbell sign-in. And then he's panned out. I just wasn't sure that rah-rah college style stuff was going to work at the NFL level, but he seems to have found a nice mix of rah-rah and machismo and quote-unquote family for the Lions, that he's a player's coach. And I don't know, I'm kind of on board now. You want your team to do well, and I'm okay admitting I was wrong about the hire. I don't know if he burns out in Detroit like Harbaugh did in San Francisco, because he kind of came in with that whole same kind of shtick. But we'll see. As long as the players hold each other accountable, I think it'll continue to work. But yeah, we're going to see some Hendon Hooker and some Kyle Allen tonight. They don't list a fourth QB on the roster. So, let me see some Craig Reynolds and Sione Vaki.
Well, I mean, you've certainly given people a lot to get excited about. We'll see how that ends up shaping up. Well, you and I managed to do a redraft mock, a full redraft mock, 12 teams. We started over the weekend and finished it up today. So we are going to go ahead and take a look. I'm just going to let that full screen. So first round, it was a redraft Superflex mock. First round, first two pickups were Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels. I don't think that's a surprise. Then Justin Jefferson. You grabbed Jamar Chase. He is my number one receiver going into the year. I'm assuming you feel pretty good about that.
I do.
That Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, and Joe Burrow go. Not too many surprises. First running back, Saquon Barkley. I took Jahmyr Gibbs at 9. Then Bijan Robinson went right after me. Then CeeDee Lamb. And then Ashton Jeanty going RB4. That's probably right about where I've seen going quite frequently. What do you think about the first round? What stands out to you?
It kind of went maybe a little more running back heavy than I would have expected. Jackie took Saquon Barkley over Gibbs and Robinson. I don't know that I would go there if Gibbs and Robinson are on the board because of the number of touches Barkley had last year. And historically, running backs that, get over that 400 touch mark the next year tends to be a little bit spotty. Barkley may be built a little bit different. So I mean, I understand why she would do that. I probably would have went Bijan and then Gibbs and probably Barkley third. I would have thought, maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown or even Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors. A couple of them would have made it into the first round. I think 5 quarterbacks are probably about right, even in Superflex, just because there's a clear separation after Burrow into the next level. So I thought it was pretty chalky.
Yeah, probably about what you're expecting. Second round starts off with Malik Neighbors, the 4th wide receiver. So Janty Neighbors there for David, not a bad start. Then Devon Achane. We looked at those Miami stats. He was helped a lot by the pass catching. I think you and I had some questions. We'll see how that works out. Then Patrick Mahomes, Bo Nix, Jared Goff, teams that didn't take quarterbacks, taking quarterbacks there. Then Christian McCaffrey, obviously has some big potential if he can stay healthy. First tight end, Brock Bowers. He played kind of like a wide receiver last year, so you can get a good positional advantage probably with him or McBride, who went a little later. Then Puka Nacua, Brian Thomas, Amon-Ra St. Brown, those 3 receivers. I probably would have taken Amon-Ra St. Brown above Nacua or Thomas, but that's just me. Then Baker Mayfield goes. I would have taken Mayfield over Goff. And then Derrick Henry goes. So I really like the value here at the end, the last 3 picks of the second round. I think those guys should have gone a little bit higher. I probably would have taken Henry over McCaffrey and Achane at this point in time, and probably would have taken the guy that started the third round, Josh Jacobs, over those 2 running backs too, just because it feels like the volume is locked in. But what did you think of the second round?
So I low-key was hoping that Achane would fall to me. When he didn't, I kind of made the decision to wait on running back. And I said, well, I'm going to build wide receiver, tight end heavy. But if Achane had come back, I would have went running back there. I agree with you, on Jared Goff. It was a little bit early. Sleeper's ADP has Goff, I think, at QB 16. So that was quite high. He finished as QB 6 last year, and he was drafted as QB 8. I think he's probably better than QB 6 or 16. What did I say? 16, 18 in redraft. But I don't know that I would have taken him as QB 8. Probably closer to Baker Mayfield, CJ Stroud. I think Bo Nix, there's an argument to be made for him early in the second round there, just because of his rushing upside. If he's going to get you 400 rush yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns, that kind of to go along with the way he showed out in the passing game, and then they just signed Cortland Sutton to a nice extension, brought in Evan Ingram. I think that Mahomes and Nix are probably in a tier together. I would have probably put Dak up above, or at least in the same group as Goff and Mayfield. I know he's had a little bit of injury history going on in recent seasons, but Dallas is a team that's going to throw the ball a lot. I would not be surprised if Dak leads the NFL in passing. So for him to have slid when Mayfield and Goff are being drafted, to me was a little puzzling. I went Brian Thomas. I really debated back and forth about Thomas and St. Brown because they were both on the board when I picked. But in the end, I decided to go with the receiver that I felt like is the more explosive of the two. I think St. Brown works a lot more out of the slot. He's going to have a little more low leverage, significantly more low leverage opportunities. But Brian Thomas is going to work that Mike Evans role in that offense there in Jacksonville. There's not really any argument against Bowers being the first tight end off the board. A lot of people like Trey McBride, but Bowers is the show in Las Vegas versus McBride, who, despite how we feel currently about Marvin Harrison being the top wide receiver there, we know what's going on with Kyler Murray and his historical aversion to 4,000 yards passing. So, like I said, I would have drafted Achane if he had fallen. I don't hate McCaffrey in the second round. There's questions about will he be able to hold up? What's his volume going to look like? He's been a difference maker for the last 5 seasons. Just 3 of them have been negative and 2 of them have been positive. So if he's on the field, he's probably the best scoring running back in the game, but he's lately not been on the field. There are some concerns there, but he's supposed to be healthy. Derrick Henry, I agree. I don't think, him at 212 is kind of late, but depends on what you're building.
You really got to like how it worked out for just Josh, because he took Josh Allen with pick 1, and then on the turn coming back, you got Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs, who I think are 2 pretty good volume backs.
He kind of built his team the opposite of mine, where I was building wide receivers, tight end. He was building quarterback, running back.
So continuing that third round, Jacobs, as I mentioned, went at 301 on the turn. Then Bucky Irving, our friend John Hamlers, he took Jaden Daniels and Baker Mayfield, then grabs Bucky Irving as his first position player. Then Trey McBride goes, pretty good start there with Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, Trey McBride, a lot of pass catchers. Comes back to you. You grab your third receiver. And this was a 2 running back, 3 receiver, tight end, 2 flex, super flex, and starting quarterback. So you grab Nico Collins, pretty incredible set of 3 receivers there. Then Jonathan Taylor goes, the last running back in the third round. A.J. Brown goes to Cole, who got Bowers, A.J. Brown, and Jalen Hurts. That Hurts-Brown stack, I kind of like those points. Then C.J. Stroud and Kyler Murray go back-to-back, a couple more quarterbacks. I took Drake London, my first wide receiver. He was really good for fantasy last year. I thought that was a solid performer. Right behind me, Ladd McConkey goes, and then 2 more quarterbacks to finish the round with Caleb Williams and Dak Prescott. I'm with you. I probably would have taken Dak. I definitely would have taken him ahead of Caleb Williams. Probably put him a little bit higher up there. But, everybody has players that they like and they believe in. I know there's a lot of strong hype for Ben Johnson, what he's going to bring to Chicago, and there's certainly every possibility it could be a big year for Caleb Williams. So get a couple of big scores down there at the end. Anything jump out at you from the third round?
So Caleb Williams was my 4th round target. To me, his rushing. He rushed for almost 500 yards last year on top of his passing, which, wasn't always the best. But I feel like he's really growing into his second season. There's already talk a little bit about, what's his body language, this and that. I think that's something he's always going to have because of, his passion for the game. And when he feels negative, I think you can see it. He's working on getting that under control, but I wouldn't have minded at all him falling to me in the 4th round. I really ended up, honestly, got a lot of my quarterback targets sniped from me throughout the draft. So I'm not super happy with my quarterback situation, but you have to adjust. And I invested some high draft capital in the wide receiver and tight end position, and I feel like I did decent with the running backs as well. Jonathan Taylor's one that he could be RB1, he could be RB25. We have questions about what's going to happen at quarterback. Is it going to be Daniel Jones? Is it going to be Anthony Richardson? It's camp season, so we're hearing a lot of the talk about Richardson's improved. He's really he looks great. His accuracy's a lot better, yada, yada, yada. I don't know how accurate that is, but, it kind of is what it is. Bucky Irving, he's riding high on last season, and going is what, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, RB9. To me, that feels like you're buying high on him, but he does feel like he's going to have the opportunity to dominate running back opportunities in Tampa. Rachaad White, well, he catches the ball well. He doesn't run very well, doesn't have very good vision. So I feel like Irving, I'd be more comfortable with him probably as a 4th rounder. Ladd McConkey, again, was at the end of the 3rd round. I almost feel like last year kind of was Ladd's ceiling. I think you're going to have to hope for that year after year after year from him, because I just don't know that he's the combination of Jim Harbaugh, who's going to want to run the ball with Greg Roman's offense and Harbaugh's, sort of tough guy mentality. They brought in Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris to kind of play that. There's going to be games where Justin Herbert does perform really well, and it's very good for McConkey. But I feel like there's going to be some inconsistency to his game this year. So, and moving forward, just because of how I don't think we're going to see Jim Harbaugh have a team that's, top 8 in pass attempts anytime soon.
Yeah, especially with the roster that they put together. So you talked a little bit. I think you and I each had a position where we ended up waiting for you as quarterback. You got your first quarterback, Michael Penix, in the 6th round. And then you ended up with Darnold in the 11th, Tyler Shook in the 14th, and Spencer Rattler in the 17th. For me, it was tight ends, and I would look and a lot of times when it came up, I didn't love the tight end that was there as much as others. After about the top 3 or 4, I think there's kind of a big grouping of them, so I wasn't that worried. But then we'd see tight ends just end up going off the board and not being available. So I ended up waiting all the way to the end, and my last 3 rounds, I just took 3 kind of flyer tight ends in Cade Otton, Brenton Strange, and Pat Freiermuth. If I did that in a real league, I'd be able to kind of play a hot hand or look at matchups, guys that are starters that have some potential upside that we've seen have some potential upside. So, but how did you end up feeling about your quarterback situation? Obviously having to wait. You mentioned, I think, that things didn't pop up the way you were hoping for.
Yeah, it was, when I drafted Penix, I kind of looked at it and thought, well, who can provide some fireworks that's left on the board? My targets were, I had hoped at 609 and 704, I was targeting Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. That was going to be my picks there. And they went at 602 and 603. So I was that bummed me out. I thought about taking Fields at the 504, but looking at the running back landscape, I was like, well, there's some mediocre guys and some rookies that I'm not sure I want to take a chance on as my RB1. And so I did go with Alvin Kamara at 504. I know the Saints offense has the potential to be really, really bad. The other side of that is it's going to run through Alvin Kamara. And so for me, I thought as my RB1, that was probably a good opportunity. Having the quarterback sniped from me, honestly, Darnold was really the last guy I felt decent about. Like, I didn't want Aaron Rodgers. I didn't want Russell Wilson. I didn't want Tyler Shough, but I felt like I needed to get a third QB. And then because Shough and Rattler are kind of battling back and forth, in the 17th, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and take Rattler, and I'll see how this plays out. I'm going to need a quarterback. I'm not seeing the bye weeks there. I think Penix and Darnold, I think their bye weeks are like week 9 and week 12 or something, or week 7 or week 12. So I really only need them for the bye weeks, provided they stay healthy, unless they crap the bed, unless Darnold and Penix crap the bed. I debated about taking Kirk Cousins in the 17th because, you know, I'm putting a lot of faith in Michael Penix, but he could stumble and fall just as easily as Cousins did. And the Falcons have not showed an inclination to move on from Cousins. They're like, yeah, we paid you a lot to come here and to be our starter, but we couldn't pass up the value of Michael Penix. And then when you struggle, Penix came in, and, you know, we feel like we got to give our young guy an opportunity to show that he's ready. But if Penix plays bad, I could see them going back to Cousins and me having to spend some high draft capital not draft capital because it's not dynasty. Maybe have to move off of one of my good wide receivers to trade with Jackie to get Kirk Cousins. So I like how my team is fundamentally. I like Bigsby in the 12th round. I think Bigsby has an opportunity. You know, he's not going to catch many passes, though he did catch, I think, 30 passes his last year at college. But as my RB4, he's a early down grinder. He's going to get the goal line work. Tony Pollard in the 9th round. I think there's going to be an even split with him and Tyjae Spears. And then with Quinshon Judkins' situation, you know, Jerome Ford's back atop the depth chart in Cleveland, so he's my RB5. It really ended up being sort of one of those, well, let's see what happens. Then Jacoby Myers and Stephon Diggs at wide receiver 4 or 5, actually Michael Pittman, wide receiver 6, are all likely the number one wide receivers on their team. So I feel like I've got pretty good wide receiver depth. It'll just depend on, ultimately, is Pittman going to get enough volume? He's being drafted, wide receiver 43 or something, I think. It was pretty far down. Let me see. I got the sleeper ADP here, but wide receiver 51 is where he's currently going. Josh Downs is going wide receiver 49. So a lot of people are betting that Downs in the short area over Pittman in the more intermediate to deeper areas. Some of that's going to depend on whether it's Daniel Jones or whether it's Anthony Richardson.
So looking over the draft board, are there any teams that stand out to you?
So I thought, for the way the draft board fell to you, that you crushed it on the tight ends. Like, my family blew up everybody's tight end strategies. Cole drafted 3 tight ends. Beth drafted 4. Jackie drafted 2. It was like, it's like, so my family all basically was like, hey, tight ends are worth more than. I'm like, why are you drafting so many tight ends? But they had a plan, I guess.
Hey, this just makes me excited about our actual, redraft league draft. We'll see how it goes.
Now, I will say, Cole said that he probably that he forgot he drafted Loveland when he drafted Ferguson, and so he really wouldn't have drafted a third tight end.
I don't even know if you need two if you have Bowers. I guess you have to end up getting somebody to cover bye weeks.
Beth felt like David Njoku. She's in the Cleveland area, lifelong Cleveland fan, and so she felt like Njoku would be flex worthy, and that was kind of her thinking there. And I'm not sure what her thinking was with Fannin. And Jackie, I don't necessarily
handcuff your top flex. You got to do it right.
Right. And I don't know. I don't know if Jackie needed to back up Mark Andrews, but we did see Andrews, have some injury issues last year, and so he may or may not be at that level where he was, for so long. So drafting Pitts may work out, or drafting a second tight end may work out there. We watched the quarterback series, and so that's why Jackie drafted Jared Goff. She's like, man, I really like that guy.
So did I. I told you, like, if I was already a Lions fan, but I really liked him. The Joe Burrow parts of that show were interesting, but I really liked. I thought he and Dan Campbell came off real well.
Yeah, I like Soupy Lou's team pretty well. C.D. Lamb, H.N., Caleb Williams, Garrett Wilson, Hawkinson Fields, Rashee Rice. Maybe not the pick of Mixon as my RB2. I am a little nervous about his injury. And then he went with Najee Harris. But he did close out the draft with Eckler, Roschon Johnson, and Justice Hill. So there is some potential to be able to kind of, in that hero RB mold, be able to get by with that second RB slot.
I like what David's doing at 12 too. He is another guy that waited on tight end. He didn't take his first tight end until round 11. But, Janty and Breece Hall kind of anchoring the running back room, Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans, Xavier Worthy, George Pickens. I think that's a lot of upside. Deebo Samuel. Then getting Goddard as the top tight end. I liked that. Maybe a little thin on running back depth, but he took Javonte Williams and Jadon Blue, which people seem to think are the two most potential Cowboys. And, Jalen Wright could end up being an interesting player. I liked his Dak Prescott pickup, and then he has McCarthy, and he picked up a couple of interesting quarterback options with some upside.
I agree. I did think maybe at one point I'm like, well, let me see about Cam Ward. I think if Cam Ward had came back to me in the 8th, I may have went there. I was also looking at, where did Ridley go? He went at 701. I may have taken Ridley over Swift if he had made it back to me. I'm kind of high on DeAndre Swift because the Bears didn't do a whole lot at the running back position. And so, the two sides of my brain are kind of battling. There's the side that says, hey, they didn't really do anything at the running back position. He's kind of the guy. And the other side is like, yeah, but Ben Johnson hated him in Detroit and couldn't wait to get rid of him. So I am a little, I go back and forth between, DeAndre Swift is my RB2 is going to kill it, to, oh my God, he may not even be playable.
Yeah. One thing I take away from here, I've said to you a couple of times when we've talked about drafts that I don't really care about where I'm drafting, not just because I feel like you can come up with a strategy anywhere, but I doesn't feel like there's huge advantages. And when I'm looking at the board and where people went and all how these teams shook out, I still feel that way. Do you have any like preferred draft spots for redraft this year?
I don't. In part, we play in a ton of leagues and we've been playing for a long time. So I had a lot of conversation with Beth about, she's like, what are we doing? Why is there this 4-hour clock? What's a mock? What are we doing this mock draft even for? And now granted, last year was the first year that Beth played fantasy football, or maybe the year before. And so there's a learning curve. And so what I said is like, look, the mock draft is to kind of give you an idea about what might happen. Like, you don't know yet where your draft slot's going to be. So she's drafting at the 206 or 106 or 107. And so I'm like, yeah, you'll get to build a team there and kind of see, then you can look around the draft board and see, well, where did other players go? Where players that I liked, where were they drafted? If I want to build, like, whose team do I like? She went running back, quarterback, running back, quarterback, running back, and then wide receiver. Well, now she can look at my team going wide receiver early, or a couple other teams that had two wide receivers before she drafted her first one, and kind of see, well, how did those teams look? Because we've been doing this so long, we sometimes forget that not everybody's been doing it a long time. And so getting in practice by holding these mock drafts and having people do them and inviting people that are maybe newer and talking about some of the things like, you probably shouldn't draft 4 tight ends in a start 1 tight end league, and depending on where you draft your first tight end, which tier that tight end is in can impact, like, should you even, like, I didn't draft a second tight end. George Kittle's my only tight end. And when his bye week comes up, guess what? I'm going to be looking to stream a tight end.
I think teams that took like 3 or 4 tight ends, though, in reality, those are the guys you end up releasing. Like I took 3 to give myself options, but after watching preseason and camp, I'm probably keeping 2 guys that I know are on different bye weeks and making some kind of pickup.
Yeah. And really that's what it comes down to. So, like what I did with drafting Shook and Rattler, Saunders A17 did the same thing with Richardson and Jones.
Yeah.
So his third QB is a combination of 2 guys.
I think that makes more sense at QB than probably rostering a whole bunch of tight ends, just because of the scoring potential and because of the prevalence of injury and turnover. I mean, it feels like we have 60 or 70 quarterbacks start a game every year. Tight end, I was surprised. Pat Fryermuth, I got him at 1709. Jonnu Smith went way up in the 11th round. People really thinking he's going to be the man there. I think it's going to be closer than what people are imagining.
Well, I was listening to the Fantasy Footballers on my way home from work today, and apparently Arthur Smith rolled out a 0-4 today for a few plays. No running back, 4 tight ends.
Arthur Smith ruining football since whenever. Well, speaking of football, we do actually have some football tonight.
22 minutes, baby.
It is the Hall of Fame game. We are doing something fun for the redraft league. We're letting everybody pick the total score, and then you'll get a chance to pick your draft slot based on how close you come to the total score. So let's talk about this game a little bit tonight, and you and I can give what we feel. Detroit is favored -1.5. The over-under is 33.5 points. We don't expect to see any of the big stars for either team, and these Hall of Fame games are usually not that exciting. I am actually taking the under on that. My guess was 30 points, 17-13 Lions with the victory. I saw your total points was 34, pretty close to just barely over the official over-under. So you see it not that much more action-packed than me.
Yeah, so for me, I went back to 2000 and I added up the scores. The average score since 2000 total points has been 32. And then I took into account that you've got Dan Campbell and Jim Harbaugh, two coaches that are pretty aggressive. And so I thought, I think we're going to be around. I don't expect a 30-27 game, but I don't expect a 13-7 game either. So I felt like adding a couple points to the average score over the last 25 years, and that's how I landed on 34. It's just, I think there'll be, you've got, so Hendon Hooker came into the league. He was a Heisman Trophy candidate and then tore his knee up, and he basically redshirted. He was already 25 years old. He needs to put some tape together, and this is really his opportunity. He's not going to start over Jared Goff, but he has to show them, hey, if Jared goes down, you can count on me. You don't need to bring Teddy Bridgewater in after he sits at home coaching a high school team. You can count on me. Trey Lance, I think he wants to get something done. I don't remember who the third quarterback is or the fourth quarterback.
DJ Ugalele.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He wants to put something on tape. You got these wide receivers that are going to try to do something, and Kamani Vidal's probably going to get a little playing time. Maybe not a lot with the Najee Harris eye thing, but I just felt like it's not going to be like super low scoring. It should be around the average. So I just said, well, let's take a couple extra points. Since I didn't have to pick like what side it was going on.
Yeah.
I just said.
Well, that's right. The total points makes it easier. It'll be fun. We had a range, from as low as 26 to as high as 49 among the people in our league. So we'll see, what kind of a game we get. That'll do it for us today. We will be back on Tuesday. I'm sure we'll be talking about that Hall of Fame game and any other breaking news. But we are actually going to start our redraft rankings next week. We are going to do top 25 quarterbacks on Tuesday. We'll do 25 tight ends on Thursday next week. The following week will be running backs, and then we'll wrap up with receivers the week after that. So if people get jonesing after this kickstart to the game and they need to start prepping because redraft season is upon them, what can they do?
They can do what I do. Go to your favorite podcast platform, hit that search bar, type in the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast, give us a subscribe, give us a like, listen to our back catalog. There's a lot of it.
Well, that'll do it for us today. I hope you guys have fun. Enjoy the Hall of Fame game. Enjoy the Hall of Fame induction ceremony this weekend, and we will see you on Tuesday.